Welcome back to the Meetings Podcast. This is Mike McAllen from Grashak Events and Media. And welcome. If you're a first-time listener, welcome. Today's show, we have Tahira Endine. She is from Cantrav Services. She went out to PCMA, which is out in Orlando for their annual meeting, the Convening Leaders Conference, and she concentrated on event technology for this podcast. She interviewed a lot of people all about event technology, about how mobile is changing the way we are thinking about doing events, and I think you might find this podcast pretty interesting in the thinking around how you're getting your content and communities for your events before, during, and after your meetings year-round. It's a quite an interesting podcast, and I hope you enjoy it. Please give us any feedback. Love to hear from you. I know Tahira would love to hear from you too. So let's get on with it.
Meetings Podcast, Tahira Endine, roving reporter. I'm here with Bob Baez from Event Mobi out of Toronto. We are at the PCMA Canada reception. Very exciting. And we're going to talk a little bit about technologies. Bob is, as you know, one of the leaders in mobile technology. So what's going on in the world of mobile technology? What's exciting, what's new, what are people looking for?
So the most exciting part of mobile technology right now is that it's becoming more affordable, and it's becoming a lot easier for event planners to actually build these mobile platforms. So they don't need a pretty massive team. They can control the amount of time they spend, and they can get really good ROI on actually building a mobile event app for the conference.
All right, Bob, so you were saying that it's more affordable, which is great, because I think that was definitely one of the barriers to entry for people not wanting to try mobile apps. But obviously they're so ubiquitous in our world that it's going to be something that people really need to start if they're not already using it.
So not only is it more affordable, and I think the value proposition has increased because more people, as you just said, actually have these devices. So we are actually seeing a trend that a lot of event planners are completely stopping to print any material for their conference, which wasn't really feasible just 2 years ago or even a year ago when you had only 50-60% adoption. So now we are actually crossing that 70-80% adoption for mobile event apps, and it is feasible and realistic to actually stop printing. And I think as soon as you cross that point, then you can easily offset the value that you get from mobile apps versus their cost, and also they're becoming a lot easier to develop and a lot easier to use by attendees, so you don't normally need an on-site rep to teach people how to use these apps, so there is no cost on that end. And the fact that more people are using it and it's easier for event planners to do it, it makes it all around better.
Well, and I think there's some really great features, like this particular mobile app that they're using at PCMA has, you can message people easily and things like that make it really great. Now, are you finding I know one of the barriers we've run into in the past is the platforms. So are you finding that people are still wanting to build, obviously, for multiple platform, and how are you finding, is that easier for people now?
It is. So what we actually focused on is a new technology called HTML5, and the beauty of HTML5 is that it actually allows you to build cross-platform. So that barrier for a lot of vendors that they had to put a lot of resources to build multiple apps on multiple platforms, and actually for event planners to test it out when they get these apps back has gone away. And that, not only that, it actually takes less than 5 minutes to actually generate one of these apps. So you could literally have an event tomorrow and start tonight, and you could have an app and you could deploy it tonight and send an email out and everybody could use it. It's really as simple as online registration these days. So that HTML5 technology actually bridges that gap, and it also allows the application to work offline, which is internet connectivity is still an issue. So it reduces that fear from an event planner point of view that internet connectivity might actually hinder the performance of these apps. So it's not a perfect solution yet, but it does bridge that gap between web-based application and native application. So it's a good solution for the majority of the event, not for every event.
That is great information, Bob. Thank you so much. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with before we sign off from our Meetings Podcast?
I'm so excited for PCMA.
Excellent. Me too. Thanks. Hello, it's Meeting Podcast roving reporter Tahira Endine. I'm here with Steve Short. Steve is with PSAV Interactive Services, and he just did a fantastic session here at PCMA Convening Leaders on how to use iPads more smartly for events. And so I've nabbed him. We're going to sit down and talk about how you can do that. So maybe, Steve, you could just give us a bit of background on PSAV and how you guys started and how you became so great in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. Thrilled to have the opportunity to do this. It was an exciting presentation. So I was talking today really about using the iPad as a presentation tool. So PSAV really has a full mobile solutions oriented team which supports our events through a centralized team which supports our entire organization. So really globally, we provide iPads and iPod touches, so provide the devices in support of events, and we also provide mobile apps. So the mobile apps have obviously been exploding, and tremendous number of events that we're involved with have been enriched and kind of made smarter, to use your great term for it. And so it's the blend of the devices and the applications to enhance events, but it's also really like the presentation today was all about is how can presenters leverage the iPad, because it really is a phenomenal tool. Yeah. Everything from creating presentations directly on the iPad or using the iPad as a remote control device to drive content on their computer, and in doing so also have access to their speaker notes in a device that's right there in their hand, and also be able to see their presentation without having to look over their shoulder or glance the other way. So it's a very comfortable and intuitive device, and all of it really made very elegant and very seamless by Apple. It's built right into the products, and really just purchasing a couple of very reasonable applications can allow people to really enhance their events and enhance their experience as a presenter, and provide just a more comfortable presenting experience.
Yeah, I thought it looked actually really good that what you were talking about, some of the applications were really interesting, and I love that as both a presenter and as someone who plans meetings, right. What we're certainly seeing on one side is a lot of how can you use it to download all your documents and go paperless, and that's great. I think that's one really great tool because that just makes it easier as a planner. Yep. But I think that when we start to get into now you're planning your event, how are you actually enhancing the end user experience? And a lot of the end user experience comes from presentations. And if you can make presenters, as you said, more comfortable and not that awkwardness of, I don't have my notes or I haven't, because some people have great information but aren't as comfortable presenting. So if you can right. give them a tool to do that and make it really simple for them, that makes so much sense to me.
Yep.
And so I think maybe you could just tell us about a couple of the tools you were talking about in your session.
Sure, absolutely. So, I certainly talk about Keynote as an application, Keynote being Apple's equivalent to PowerPoint. And Keynote has been around for a very long time on Apple computers as that PowerPoint equivalent. And really very early after the iPad was rolled out, Keynote on the iPad became available. So now people that don't even have an Apple computer but have an iPad can author presentations in Keynote. They can actually import PowerPoint presentations and just through some very easy steps say, tap on the PowerPoint file and say open in Keynote, and Keynote literally just converts that file, creates a native Keynote file at that point, which can be manipulated. I run into people all the time that have been doing what, quite honestly, even I was doing early on, is taking their PowerPoint, converting it all to PDFs, putting the PDFs onto their iPad, and then just scrolling through. You lose any animation potential. Yeah. You lose the ability to make a change.
And they're not in the same order anymore.
They're not in the same order. Yeah, and generally it's not even easy to take out one of the pages, right? Because you've created this 14-page PDF document. So by literally just opening PowerPoint in Keynote, which is like a $15 app available on the App Store, you then have a file which you can manipulate, you can change, you can share with people, you can email it directly out from there. So that's one solution which is fantastic. But also, as I mentioned, there's another app called Keynote Remote. Keynote Remote allows you to use the iPad to drive a Keynote presentation on your computer, which in the live event environment, that's really the solution that I use on a regular basis because of that sort of peace of mind index, if you will, right? Yeah. People can be unnerved about having their entire presentation rely on high speed.
Yeah.
PSAV is in the high-speed provider business as well, but I know that that can be unnerving. It can also be expensive. If you use Keynote Remote, you can, using a simple device like a MiFi device, create a wireless connection between your iPad and your computer, but your computer is connected via a wire to the display, either the flat screen or the projector.
Yeah.
So if you have a problem with that connection between the iPad and the computer is still what's driving the presentation. You can always walk over, tap the space bar, and you're good to go. So it has kind of a built-in backup to it. It is also the case that I find that, a computer, an Apple computer, is just a more robust machine to be driving that presentation, so depending on your animations and so forth. So those are a couple of nice ones. There are also the ability to use your iPad as a remote to drive PowerPoint applications on a PC. A couple of those apps that I particularly like are Docery, and there's actually one called Nice Meeting, which is actually fairly new, and we've actually just been utilizing that a little bit. And that's interesting because it does utilize the web, but there are some ways of utilizing it in a local cast environment. So you can just create a wireless network in the building that doesn't need the internet itself. And that actually can be also a really nice experience, depending on people's sensitivity around security or,
it's going to depend on your meeting, like anything, right?
Exactly.
So, but it is, it's great that there's so many options now, because I think for a long time, it was very much like you showed up with your one presentation and you had one way of doing it, and you had that awkward next slide, please.
Right.
And so, you might forget your notes, or, if you're not seeing your notes page, it's easy to, you finish your presentation, you're like, oh, there's that one thing I wanted to say. So when you can start to take out some of those elements just through something that so many people now have.
Right, and that it's built right in. I mean, that's what's so fantastic about the sort of AirPlay, which streams the content from an iPad or an iPhone, for that matter, to a display. That's built right in. The Keynote Remote being an Apple product, connecting to Keynote, which is an Apple product. It's just so buttoned up, as you would imagine. And, it provides a great experience. And, to your point, I always enable the speaker notes, and it makes me feel better that I have them. I don't use them. No. Right?
But it is just that peace of mind.
Exactly.
Right?
And what I did have found is that when I used to literally have a pad with notes, I referred to it, and I fell into the trap of reading it. But because on the iPad I've got my notes and the image of what's on screen,
so
I'm glancing down at it, and I have that peace of mind. But I'm not really ever reading it. Now, some people would maybe feel differently about just putting the key words that need to prompt them and what have you. Depends on if you're more of a literal.
But that's the great thing, is you're building
visual.
your own, right?
Exactly.
So you can make it as robust as you need to make it for
it's
yourself.
Your presentation.
So it's well, those are great tips, Steve. Thank you very much.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So that's Steve Short, PSAV from Meetings Podcast. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Hey, it's Tahira Endine, roving reporter for Meeting Podcast. I'm here with Jordan Schwartz of Pathable. And Pathable is a very interesting event community platform. And so we're going to talk a little bit about community engagement and how Pathable can support that. So welcome, Jordan.
Thank you, Tahira.
So tell us a little bit about Pathable.
So Pathable provides communities, online communities for events. The idea is that people are going to events to network, meet each other. If all I wanted out of an event was the educational material, I can go online, especially today with the internet and online learning becoming so prevalent. But I'm going because having face-to-face conversations with people is important to me. That's where the real value of the meetings for so many people come from. And it's just really hard to do.
It is true, and I think it's interesting. We're here at PCMA. PCMA has 3,800, 4,000, a lot of people here at Convening Leaders. So first of all, it's difficult to find people, but one of the ways that we're starting to find people is by finding the people that we're already connected to on our social platforms, whatever the variety of that social platforms is. And then now we already have a little bit of a built-in community here. So we'll see some of that, say, at the tweet up tonight. But what I love about Pathable is that, particularly for the smaller groups, is that you can create a community that starts before the event, so that when people arrive, they feel already connected. You're not walking into a room of 150 strangers. So How are you using that sort of philosophy to get people engaged in Pathable and to get people, really understanding the power of that?
Yeah.